Okay.
Afternoon. Oh, that was horrible. We're gonna have to edit that out. You distracted me, Nick. Welcome to the Brown Bag Business Chat. I'm your host, Heather Steele. Today I have Nick Augustine with Lone Star Content Marketing here in the Denton area. Nick specializes in content marketing for attorneys and small businesses. And Nick, I'll let you talk a little bit more about what you do and why you do it better than anybody else.
All right. Well, I like to say that I do it well. I'll let other people say I do it better. But my concept of my business really launched from my career. I started in law and decided I didn't want to practice law. Actually, I knew that for quite a long time. And in 2000 and around 2007, people started getting on LinkedIn, and I was doing some side work. Started my own business doing legal research and writing. And that turned into PR and marketing because we saw a need to help small law firms do their social media, their blogs, and their newsletters, and help them understand that world. So as I was spending so much time going to chamber events and business networking luncheons and learning, being self-taught in a lot of this content arena, it just sort of took to helping law firms and small businesses with that. So I started hung my own shingle as an outsourced solution for just a few main practice areas in general civil law. I was so I started doing that, and content. Yeah, at first it's interesting when starting a small business because you end up trying to do all the things that people want, because when you go and try to sit and talk to them about doing their blogs and social media campaigns, a lot of times we started with, well, we have a website that's 10 years old and we need to start with that, and some of them have a limited budget. So it was an interesting go, and it took me a while to just kind of settle in on the niche of content writing for lawyers and maybe service industry professionals. And basically it wasn't because I couldn't do the other things as well. Was the perception is a guy with a law degree who is fluid in a lot of these practice areas and who's writing a lot of this content is going to be in an easier choice for someone to do content and writing because they understand it, as opposed to taking someone who has no concept of law or different practice areas and how they work and sending them to task writing blog articles. They might be in over their head. So it was just a niche, and I learned to let go of all the other parts of the business and find good referrals and other companies to work with, which is sort of the topic of today's chat, Heather.
Awesome. So a little more information for people that don't know. Nick and I are both in what I call a small town. I guess we're really not, but we have a small town mentality here in Denton, Texas. So I don't know, what is the population in Denton? It's
I think the population of Denton itself is 115,000. But to explain to people who aren't around here, the Denton city limits actually go to edges of the next town north, which is quite far. Well, Sanger's 15-20 minutes away, so there's a lot of rural space and cow pastures as well. So we're pretty spread out in Denton, and it is a small town, but we're still within the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So we're just down the road from other towns. We're not out by ourselves, but we do have definitely a local business climate here, and Denton is certainly unique within the Metroplex.
So kind of getting back to our topic there,
Yeah.
that was a really long answer. Nick has lots of long answers, so everybody just get ready.
Well, explain myself.
So we're a smaller town. You're not going to see a lot of large corporations here like you would in the downtown Dallas area, which I think a lot of people, especially outside of Texas, kind of assume that all of the commerce goes on in either Dallas, Houston, or Austin, and there's really not much else outside of that, which is completely untrue. So what I wanted to do is spend some time today just talking about, if you're not in that hub of the downtown area where all the businesses seem to be, how do you set up shop and start a successful business and take advantage of the fact that you are in a smaller town, and then leverage that to really grow your business into one that works outside of just the local environment, but if you're a service industry, or even selling product across the U.S.? How do you grow, but at the same time take advantage of what benefits there are to being in a small town? So before we go much further, Nick, you have a little bit more interesting story. I grew up about an hour from here, moved to Denton for college, and then really just never did leave, which is the story of a lot of people here. But Nick, your story is a little bit different. So why don't you tell us about what brought you to Denton in the first place? Why did you leave where you were practicing and come down to Texas and choose Denton as your home?
Well, it is an interesting story. I'm a native of Northeast Wisconsin, grew up in Appleton, and went to college at Marquette. It was a liberal arts college, and went to law school in Chicago, and stayed in the Chicago area, mainly in the suburbs in DuPage County, for about 12 years. And the economy was this is where I started my business and went to law school and changed it all up. And I built a pretty good following. However, the economy was challenged, and a lot of people were jumping ship. My brother worked for a Fortune 500 company, and he transferred to an office in the Dallas area. And so he said, "I'm moving to North Texas. Are you interested in moving your business too and coming along as well?" And I thought, you know what, why not? Let's go for it. And so, almost with a little wagon, pioneering spirit, more like a Silverado with a U-Haul trailer, trucked it on down and found a place just outside of Denton. And I really liked the idea of Denton because the population very, very similar to my small town where I grew up, but with a better economy, better weather, and friendly people, and a growing base and a population growth that's a plan for the future. So it just seemed to fit the blend of having big city amenities and things I need if I want to go to Dallas for a major industry event, but then being able to serve a small, close-knit community in Denton.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely glad that you made that decision to move down here. Nick and I met about 4 or 5 months ago, I think, through the Chamber of Commerce, which we're both fairly recent members of. So really up until about 6 months ago, we weren't even taking advantage of the Chamber, which I think says a lot about how you can nurture your business even outside of the more traditional settings. So why don't you talk a little bit about, before joining the Chamber, what other professional networks or just ways did you really nurture your business using some of the local resources? And then maybe talk a little bit about how the Chamber has actually improved even beyond that.
Right. Well, for me, actually, social media was the Kickstarter. Before I moved, I spent a lot of time online, sort of, looking for people who might be good clients or people who would be good people in the creative world to kind of tap into. And so I actually started some relationships and dialogues before moving, and started to see where people were going, what kind of events were there, and then started attending some events, and some of them were chamber events. Other things were, for my purposes, with a lot of law firm clients, it was bar association events, and the non-for-profit organizations supporting the legal community and the attorneys in those roles. So finding the events and sort of finding and meeting a few people first, and then they say, oh, welcome to Texas. Here's a bunch of other people, meet them, and so you're basically earning your way into small little social circles, just really to find out, the places like who are the influencers in town, where this is a more like market approach, but really getting to figure out who people are, where they're going, what they care about, just try to sniff out, what to do next with my business, I guess.
So would you say that compared to being in a larger city where there is a lot more going on in the business community, is it harder or easier to find those influencers and connect with them?
I think it's easier on a smaller, localized level because people are, I guess, I don't know if they are more accessible or I just perceive that they're more accessible, but it's easier to, figure out like who's who at a smaller chamber event, for example, or a smaller networking event, where people are, they're a little more friendly. I think in bigger cities and a larger environment, you really have to be a part of a solidified group. It's sort of the why are you here factor. Who are you with? When I was in Chicago, I was part of a group called Legal PR Chicago, and a lot of people would read my name tag and they want to know which, it was mostly in-house people at big law firms, and it was, who are you with, as opposed to, hi, how are you doing? So I think that it was easier to get into local things. Now, I want to say that that's obviously possible in a larger city too, because there are always neighborhoods where people hang out and do their business as well. So, whether you're in a small town or a large town, you can still find that local, I guess, who are your tribe of people.
Very good. And just kind of elaborating on that with connecting with people and having more of a personal connection, what would you say has been, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this question, what would you say has been kind of the hardest thing about going from, you spend a lot of time working in some larger cities and working around larger firms, and then moving to a smaller town where things are more, slower paced, or smaller shops, there's not that same level of, I guess, goings on as what you probably experienced. So on the flip side of that, you talked about what was positive. What were some of the negative things, and how did you overcome those?
I want to say that they're negative as much as they were challenges, but the challenge of trying to really figure out the pace of business. I've had clients that I've earned through them finding me on social media, and then we email exchange and maybe a phone call, and now we're doing business. It's not like that as much. I found around this area particularly. There's a lot more face-to-face meetings, a lot of things that my brother and I used to kind of joke about, why couldn't this have been done with an email or a phone call? But the flip side of that is, seemingly thinking that so many people want these face-to-face interactions, and it's seemingly that we could dispense of a lot of that with technology. It's so much better, I find, to actually sit down and get to, sit down and get to know a person better. I think you have better quality relationships. So for me, I found that the business cycle was more of getting to know people, being respectful, more minding your business manners, which is something I'm a big proponent of, and a huge reason I wanted to come do business here. Because people still take stock in, business professionalism, and professional courtesies. So it really the path to business where, it seemed to me, I was used to a cycle where people showed you excitement and they were ready to buy much earlier, versus here, I didn't know that they were going to buy. They knew they were going to buy, but they wanted to make sure to get to know me well first. So, and then, so you invest a little more time and nurture some of those friendships and relationships, and then they convert into business once they know that you can trust you. So, just a little bit of a different pace, but, now that I'm, comfortable and I've been here, for a while, well over a year, it's a good pace and I like it.
So turning those business relationships into friendships first before you actually sell or convert someone to a client. Sometimes, I don't know if you've had the same experience, but sometimes that can really come back to bite you. Have you had any kind of experience like that where you form the friendship and then it becomes really hard to talk to them about price changes or to upsell them to a new service that they really need and can benefit from, but because you've got that friendship layer there, you've got the small town kind of everybody looking out for everybody mentality, do you find that makes it harder sometimes to increase your sale with someone, to bring new services in, or just to continue a business relationship that runs in tangent to a friendship?
It's difficult, and it makes me think of the chat that you had about setting boundaries. And I've been fortunate with working with professionals, especially with a lot of the lawyers. They understand that I'm in business. I mean, they're in business. We're all here to make money. But it is easier to say no to someone who's a friend. Here's the thing too. When people are looking to buy services, they don't want to look or they don't want to be perceived as not being able to afford whatever you have. No one wants to admit they're on a budget. And I think it's a lot easier when you're a closer friend with someone to sort of let your poker face down. So I mean, which is good in one parts and maybe bad in another. But I think that it's good to then maybe take those people and say, all right, I'll hook you up on a few things, but maybe you should send me some referrals, and I'll try to send you some referrals. And if I want to help you, and do favors, I hope this person is also going to do favors for me. So there's value you can find in those people. Some people we meet are people who are purchasers, and some people are never going to buy anything, but they're going to say great things about us to others. So, and we need both of those, and it's hard to really get trapped behind that, but as far as being friends with people in business and who you're going to do business with, it's always good to maintain that level of professionalism, even if you're friendly, because to remind us that we're all here to run business, and if we're not here to fraternize, and we can do that outside of something or at another event. But so kind of having those boundaries, and if you conduct yourself professionally during business hours and when you're doing emails and such, people will sort of key into that, and you'll get that in response, I think.
It's interesting that you say, I think this just shows how people in different professions can be so different, that your client base would be very hesitant to say, I'm on a budget, I can't afford that, that's outside of what I can do right now, that they would feel a little bit more hesitant about that. The people that we work with tend to be very budget conscious, and they are not afraid to let you know that something is definitely outside of their budget, and they are not going to pay for it.
And that can be a challenge, because
really different chat about personas and really understanding your clients and how they communicate. But I don't want to get too sidetracked on that. I just thought it was really funny when you said that, because it was like, wow, I can't think of a single client who would try to pretend that they have a bigger budget than they do, or not want to tell me that, nope, Heather, I cannot do that.
I mean, here's where it can come up to be kind of scary too, because there can be people, when they're spending money in marketing, you have people who spend money and need to get a tangible product that they can repurpose. There are people who spend money because they need to make the phone ring, and there are people who spend money because they want more people to know about them and increase their brand following for for doing business later. And if you're someone, if someone is coming to you and you have a deal and you think this is just a drop in bucket for them, this is more of a branding effort, you might be missing the boat, because they had a set amount in their budget. They really couldn't afford much, and they need some sort of deliverable and sort of result. So it can be stressful, and it's just why it's just good never to assume anything or count people's money that you don't,
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think the scarier thing is, this is really getting off of our topic at hand, but people who they have a little bit of budget and they don't have any sales coming in, and they don't know what to do besides throw that money at some marketing, whether it's going to create sales or not.
Right.
And that, of course, is completely off on a different tangent. So bringing this back on track, talking about, starting a business in a small town, running a business in a small town, and growing outside of that, because eventually, especially if you're in a service like we are, where you've got you defined your audience, you know who you do work for, and you have a great fit, which again are all topics that we will explore further down the road. Eventually you run out of people in town to work with. You're only going to have so many businesses, especially in a smaller area. So Nick, how do you handle, there's a lot of attorneys here in Denton, but it's still a finite number. How do you handle being able to continue growing and also keeping that small small town local feel to your business?
Right. Well, it's a challenge because if what I sell, content marketing and PR, we're trying to make our clients really look good, better than everyone else. Now, you can't do that for everyone in the same block. If you were selling water and everyone needs water, that's one thing. But when they're individualized services, people want to they're worried about competition. So it's real tough to do business for law firm A when law firm B across the street is their competitor. So what I've decided is I split my business marketing efforts in kind of two streams. One being local any business, and the two being really narrowly targeted law firm clients. So when I go to local business networking events and whatnot, I can take a client who's a lawyer, a doctor, or someone who runs a candy shop or a record shop in town. They all have products or services to sell. So when I'm local, I'm available for those things. But on my strategic planning for bringing new clients and making introductions, I'm considering the entire Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, covering mainly Denton on down to Fort Worth and everything in between, and then some minor outreach into Dallas and McKinney and some other areas, and also areas beyond North Texas. I have client based back in Chicago where I was living before, so try to expand those as much as reasonably possible. But so it's just trying to realize that there may be some competitors, and for those people who have never gone out into other markets, what I suggest is just make a day of it. Take a day to go there and kind of build it around an event that's going on. So find a free chamber event, for example, in another area or another town, and then try to set up little meetings to go around and say hi to people, or set targets, like a walking target. This is something people don't really do as much anymore, but kind of taking an area where some businesses are that you'd like to do business with, identify them, and go walk in person, be looking good, and ask for an appointment, a walk-in to set an appointment to talk, either a phone appointment or a follow-up the next week. So that it's just some ideas there in trying to separate it out, but it can be difficult when if you have a service that is good for everyone in town, and there are a limited number of businesses. Again, asking your clients for referrals to other people they know somewhere else, but having that be a mutual conversation of, hey, I'm looking for referrals outside of town if you know anyone. And by the way, remind me more about what you do, and do you want referrals from somewhere else? So everyone's sort of keeping their ears to the ground on that.
And do you find that letting people know that you're doing work, for our example, our business, we do work all over the U.S. We really have a smaller local client base than we have in other areas of the country. Do you find for you, especially being Lone Star content marketing, I know your brand really hinges a lot on being local and the city of Denton. Do you find that it waters down your brand at all when people see that you are marketing outside of town, outside of state, that you're working with people all over? Has that ever been an issue for you?
It's one of those things that's scary but doesn't have to be, and you just have to. I think about perception. I was a psych major in college. I think about how people are going to see and perceive things. So, for example, having the name Lone Star Content Marketing, and then promoting law firm clients in the Chicago area. I look at that and I say, well, there people are going to assume that he's a good attorney. He's got a good practice. Lone Star Content is probably a bigger company they're using. They're in the Texas area. That's not uncommon for people in the higher end to use companies from all over. So I think about that. I also think about how it's perceived to have clients who are in different coasts. So I have a client who's a credit damages expert in California, and so if I'm showcasing and syndicating content for all my different clients, and I've got people here in Denton as well as Southern California, Chicago, and somewhere else, I try to make sure that I stay humble and not make. Sometimes people want to make it look like they have offices in all these different places, but the reality is a lot of these people we've met on social media or through referrals. So I think the best way to approach that is to say that you're focused on your locality where you're mainly aimed, and then also telling people, yes, I also have clients in other states or national clients, but sort of being humble about it and not being boastful. I think people do business with people they know, like, and trust, and they're going to rather do business with someone who's approachable and not trying to paint the picture that they're the only game in town and that they've got a shop on every corner when that's not true. Because I think people see right through that. So I don't think it. I think it's more a challenge for those of us who are selling on a more large scale. I think it's more our problem than our customers' problem. I don't think that they really perceive or think that much about it, especially if they're coming to you as a referral or they already like you for some other reason. I don't think that's. I think it's, again, it's more of a challenge, and those of us who are trying to do business locally and further out, it's just how we position ourselves.
Yeah, we have a really good example of a client that we're working with in Arizona who they really wanted to work with a local firm. They're helping to put together some political campaign and website, all kinds of materials. And they were really hoping to find someone local that they could work with, and it just wasn't panning out well. And they finally went to one of the business owners that's on the committee and talked to them about, you're really happy with who's doing your website and your marketing for you. Who are they? Can we set a meeting? And the referral from her and the fact that we come with a good word of mouth, we come from a trusted resource, just took that very high need of working with someone local down. They didn't care anymore. Having someone that they knew would be easy to work with, that would create a good product, that would give them what they needed, was so much more important than having someone that they could actually sit down with face to face and have regular meetings. And so I think that's something that people don't really realize. They sometimes put up their own borders and their own limitations by saying, oh, I'm not in this city, I can't actually meet with them in person. Or clients sometimes think about it from the wrong standpoint of, I need someone who I can actually sit down with and be in the same room with, when really some of our best work gets done when we can kind of put those things away and not have to spend a lot of time together and not have to get in each other's way. And
Right.
I think that's an interesting way to look at it. So, Nick, we are running right up to our time here. Is there anything else that you wanted to add about your experience with Denton specifically, or just being in a smaller town and how that's impacted your business?
Yes. Having come from a small town myself and knowing that people tend to be very guarded and protective of their town and their culture more than anything else, I think that we are also, as we're very protective people, we're also very open people. So I think it's really important when moving to a new town to really try to immerse yourself and understand the culture and not try to change the culture necessarily, not try to overly compare your new place with your old place or where you came from, because at the end of the day no one really cares that much. But just being really respectful and trying to learn what it is. Learn the town, learn the culture, learn the people, ask more questions, be a good listener, and because they'll tell you, and you'll tend to see where you're getting accepted, what groups, and where you're getting traction. But to just kind of slow down, take notes. I think people people are very nervous when coming into a new business environment. It's like if you've gone to a big networking event you've never gone to before, and you don't know anyone, the tendency is to, I don't know what the tendency might be for different people, but I think it's just slow down, take it easy, and try to just immerse yourself in a new culture with new people and ask all the right questions, and people will tell you, and if you're a good listener, they'll show you the way.
Very good advice. And Nick, I want to thank you again for your time. It's been wonderful getting to know you through the chamber and just different things that we're doing together in our businesses. So I really appreciate everything that you've helped me with on my marketing communications, and then also taking the time to be on the show today. Is there anything coming up here in town or in the DFW area that you want to let people know about, events, special things going on?
We were just I don't know what the chamber mixer is for this month of November. I don't remember what it was. I know they said something about it. But Denton Chamber of Commerce is denton-chamber.org. Another thing that I'm going to is a thing in Fort Worth. I know we were talking about Denton, but let me see where it is. Fort Worth Chamber has their Holiday Santas or Cowboy Santas holiday mixer on the 25th of November from 5:30 to 7:30, so that's out there too. And I always say, and everyone goes to all the the local same stuff they always go to, I think it's a good idea to sometimes just throw a dart at the board and see where it lands, and try to find a chamber event or something. Just change it up. It's always good to meet someone and go into a new circle every now and then.
Awesome. And on our end, we have this weekend on Sunday, I don't know what day of the month that is, the 9th, perhaps, at 4 o'clock at Ron's Tavern out in Bedford, we will have a Genesis WordPress meetup. So for clients, colleagues, people that are using the Genesis framework for their WordPress sites, it's a great chance to come meet some of the other local developers. We have a great time. Typically, we'll spend some time answering some support forum questions. We spend a lot of time drinking beer and eating really junky food, and we have a really good time. So anybody that lives in the DFW area who's a WordPress user, especially if you're on the Genesis framework, definitely put it on your calendar. Come hang out with us at 4 o'clock, Ron's Tavern on Sunday. And that wraps up this episode of the Brown Bag Business Chat. Next week on Wednesday at noon Central, we will have Pam Ongst of Pam and Marketing. Pam is our SEO guru. So she does the SEO for Blue Steel Solutions, for all of our clients. Really anybody that ever needs help with search engine optimization, we send them to Pam because she is awesome and she knows more about SEO than anyone else I know. So we'll be talking about kind of the good and the bad, how to tell who's a good SEO consultant, how to do some SEO work yourself, and then she'll share, I'm sure, some awesome stories of things that she's seen, both from a good and bad perspective from other SEO consultants. So definitely, if you're out, how can I get my site ranking in Google? What the heck is SEO? How can I do it better? Or is my SEO firm doing a good job? You want to catch us next week at noon on Wednesday, and we will be sharing that link here shortly. So y'all have a great day. We'll see you next Wednesday.
All right. Bye, Heather.
Bye.